I was looking through the source stack for this week's deep dive, and I realized something about the way we live now.
Mhm.
We are absolutely obsessed with optimization.
It's almost the defining characteristic of the era, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, we optimize our sleep schedules with trackers. We optimize our gut biomes. We optimize our investment portfolios. Everything's a life hack.
Everything.
But when it comes to the ultimate goal, the thing all that optimization is supposed to be for, which is, happiness. And we tend to rely on, well,
Vibes,
look,
intuition,
yeah,
and a lot of very, very conflicting advice.
exactly. It's either hustle harder until you make it, or,
Manifest your dream life.
right, or just let it go. It's all incredibly vague.
Mm-hmm.
But the sources we're covering today, they're really trying to pull the concept of happiness out of the philosophy department
And put it in the lab.
put it right into the lab. We've got data from the Harvard Study of Adult Development, which is just incredible. We've got neurogenetics, behavioral economics.
We do. And the data is surprisingly ruthless. It cuts through a lot of that soft, fluffy advice we're all so used to hearing.
That's what I want to get into, because I think our listener, you're not here for a pep talk. You want to know the mechanics,
Yeah, the how.
the how. Biologically and psychologically, what is actually happening under the hood.
Mm.
And looking at the research, it seems like the first hurdle is that we don't even have a good definition for the word happiness.
That is the first trap. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the literature, happiness is a notoriously sloppy term. It's almost useless scientifically.
Really?
Yeah. If you look at the source material, researchers, they have to distinguish between two very different neurobiological states that we just tend to lump together under one word.
Okay, right. This is the distinction between hedonic well-being and eudaimonic well-being.
Correct. And this isn't just semantics. These are like different pathways in the brain. They use different neurochemicals. They feel different.
Okay, so break those down for us.
Yeah.
Hedonic sounds like,
Hedonism. Essentially, yes. Think of it as the short-term reward system. It's largely driven by dopamine.
dopamine.
It's the pleasure you get from eating a donut, buying a new watch, getting a like on social media, or, having a really good glass of wine. It's characterized by these high peaks of enjoyment, but they're fleeting.
It's a sugar rush.
Precisely, the perfect analogy. It's all about maximizing immediate pleasure and minimizing immediate pain. And it feels good, don't get me wrong, but it has a very, very short half-life. Once that dopamine wears off, you are right back to baseline looking for the next hit.
Okay, so that's hedonic.
Yeah.
Versus eudaimonic happiness. That sounds a lot more academic.
It does. It comes from the Greek word for human flourishing. Aristotle talked about this a lot. This isn't about feeling good in the moment.
Okay.
It's about meaning and purpose and self-realization. It's the satisfaction you get from, say, raising a child or finishing a really difficult project at work or volunteering for something you care about.
So things that might actually be really stressful while you're doing them.
That is the key. That's the paradox. Eudaimonic activities are often difficult, sometimes even painful, while you're in the middle of them.
Right.
I mean, training for a marathon isn't fun in the hedonic sense. It hurts. Your legs ache. But completing it, crossing that finish line, provides a deep, sustained sense of fulfillment that a donut could never, ever give you.
So one is a quick hit, and the other is a slow burn that builds into something more substantial.
Exactly. And the research suggests we need a balance of these, right? Or is one somehow superior?
Well, that's the question. I mean, we all need a bit of both. A life with zero pleasure is just a grind.
For sure.
But the data suggests that while we are conditioned by society, by advertising, to chase the hedonic stuff.
Because it's flashy and marketable, you can sell a donut.
You can sell it done. It's the eudaimonic activities that actually correlate with long-term life satisfaction, and this is crucial, with physical health.
So it's not just a mental thing.
Not at all. And that's a key distinction we're going to keep coming back to, because I think most of us, we spend our paycheck chasing those hedonic hits, the car, the clothes, the vacation, hoping they'll somehow stack up into eudaimonic satisfaction.
And the math just doesn't work that way. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of the system. You can't stack enough short-term pleasures to build a long-term sense of meaning.
Okay, so we have our mission for today. We are going to try to decode what some of the sources call the happiness formula. We want to look at the variables we can control and, just as importantly, the ones we can't.
Right.
And to do that, we have to start with a data point that I think makes people the most uncomfortable.
The pie chart.
The happiness pie chart. This comes from a lot of positive psychology research, specifically work by Sanjay Bermursky and others. And it breaks down the variance in happiness between individuals. Why is person A generally happier than person B?
Right. And the first slice of that pie is, well, it's the big one. It's the one that's hard to swallow. The data suggests that approximately 50% of the variance in our happiness is genetic.
50%. I have to admit, when I first read that, I felt a little defeated.
Most people do.
It sounds like determinism.
Yeah.
If half the game is rigged before I'm even born, why bother trying to optimize anything?
It's a very common reaction. Oh, I'm just born grumpy, so that's it for me. But we need to look at what genetic actually means in this context. It's not as simple as that.
Okay.
It's not that you have a single happiness gene that just forces you to smile. It's much more about your biological baseline and your sensitivity to the world.
The sources mention the 5-HTT gene pretty specifically.
Yes, the serotonin transporter gene.
Yeah.
This is one of the key mechanisms we know about. This gene, it basically regulates how your brain recycles serotonin. And you can have a long allele or a short allele of this gene.
Okay, so what does drawing the short straw look like, biologically speaking?
Well, if you have the shorter variant, your brain recycles serotonin less efficiently in certain situations. Research suggests this can make you more biologically reactive to stress.
More reactive.
Yeah. You might be predisposed to focus more on threats or to ruminate on negative experiences. You might have what you could call a stickier relationship with anxiety.
So it's not that you can't be happy, it's just that the friction is higher, the headwind is stronger.
That is a great way to put it. Think of it like a metabolic rate. Some people are born with a metabolism where they can eat pasta every day and stay thin.
Right, I know those people.
We all do. And then others, they look at a bagel and gain weight. It's not that the second group can't be fit, but they have to apply more intentionality to the system. They have to work a bit harder for the same result.
That makes a lot more sense.
Okay.
So the 50% is just the starting line. It's your default setting, but only if you do nothing to change it.
Correct. It's your set point. But set points can be managed. They're not destiny.
Okay, that's a relief. So 50% is the hardware we're born with. Now let's look at the next slice, the circumstance slice. This is the one that really shocked me.
The 10%.
10%. This includes your job, your income level, the city you live in, your marital status, your house, your car. I mean, all the stuff we spend 99% of our time stressing about and trying to change.
Let's assume we chase.
Everything. And the data says it only accounts for about 10% of the difference in our happiness. How is that possible?
It seems impossible, doesn't it? Because we live our lives thinking, if I just get that promotion, then I'll be set. Or if I just move to that nicer neighborhood, all the stress will go away.
But the data says that's basically a delusion.
It's a delusion that's caused by a core function of our brain, adaptation. The technical term is the hedonic treadmill.
The hedonic treadmill.
Humans are adaptation machines. We are incredibly, incredibly good at getting used to things, both good and bad.
Okay, so walk me through an example. Let's say I win the lottery today.
You win the lottery. Great. For the first month, maybe 2, you are ecstatic. Your dopamine is off the charts. You buy a mansion, you quit your job, you travel.
That's pretty good.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But the research is crystal clear on this. Within about a year, sometimes even less, your happiness levels revert almost entirely back to your genetic baseline.
Because the mansion just becomes my house.
Exactly. The marble floors just become the floor you walk on to get to the bathroom in the middle of the night. The expensive car just becomes the vehicle you sit in during traffic. The novelty wears off, the dopamine normalizes, and you are left with your own mind again.
That is wild and a little terrifying. We spend so much energy trying to control the external world, that 10%, because it feels so tangible.
It's visible.
We can see the new car. We can't see our serotonin transporters.
And that's precisely why we misallocate our resources. We overinvest in circumstance because it's visible and easy to measure, and we underinvest in our internal tools because they're invisible and require consistent effort.
Which brings us to the final and most hopeful slice of the pie.
Yeah.
If 50% is genetics and 10% is circumstance, that leaves 40%.
The 40% control factor. This is the sweet spot. This is where the work gets done.
And this is what exactly?
This is determined by our intentional activities, our daily habits, our thought patterns, and where we consciously choose to direct our attention.
So almost half of our happiness is basically a skill, something we can learn and practice.
That is the single most empowering takeaway from all of this literature. Happiness is a skill. It is not a trait you were given at birth. It is a practice you cultivate, just like playing the piano or learning a new language.
That reframes the entire conversation. It's not, are you a happy person? It's, are you practicing happiness?
Exactly. And the question then becomes, okay, if we have this 40% of equity in our own well-being, how do we invest it? What are the high-yield activities? Where do we get the best return?
Well, let's look at the single biggest investment. The research points a giant, flashing neon arrow at one thing. It's not money, it's not fame, it's not six-pack abs,
It is
the
relationships.
king of predictors.
It really is. And
Yeah.
we need to be very specific here because the word relationships can sound kind of soft and fuzzy.
Right.
We are basing this on the Harvard study of adult development, which is arguably the most famous, most robust longitudinal study in this entire field.
I love this study because the scope of it is just so audacious.
Yeah.
Tell the listener how this whole thing started, because the contrast in the two groups they chose is really, really important.
It is. It started way back in 1938. The researchers recruited two very, very different groups of young men. The first group was a cohort of Harvard sophomores.
So the elite of the elite.
The absolute elite. You know, future presidents like John F. Kennedy were eventually part of this group. Privileged, highly educated, high social status, the best of the best.
Okay, so that's group one and group two.
Group two was a bunch of boys from the poorest, most troubled tenements in Boston.
So the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Totally. Kids from families with no hot water, often in trouble with the law, living in extreme poverty and dysfunction. They wanted to see how life would play out for the very top and the very bottom of the American socioeconomic ladder.
And they didn't just send them a survey once a decade, right?
Yeah.
This was incredibly in-depth.
Oh, unbelievably so. They interviewed them every few years. They interviewed their parents, their wives, their children. They analyzed their blood. They did brain scans on them in their 80s. They followed these men for their entire lives.
So after 80 years, mountains of data, thousands and thousands of pages of analysis, what was the headline? What was the one big takeaway?
The current director of the study, Robert Waldinger, he summarized it perfectly. He said, "Good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period." It wasn't the guys who had the highest IQs who lived the longest, healthiest lives. It wasn't the guys who made the most money. It wasn't the guys who became famous. The single strongest predictor of whether a man would be happy and healthy at age 80 was how satisfied he was in his relationships at age 50.
That is the stat that just blew my mind. Relationship satisfaction at 50 is a better predictor of your physical health at 80 than your cholesterol levels are.
It's staggering. It completely challenges the standard medical model we've all grown up with. We think of health as diet, exercise, not smoking, and genetics, and all of those things matter, of course.
Of course.
But this suggests that social connection isn't just a psychological preference. It is a biological variable as important as cholesterol.
I want to drill into that, because I think we all get that loneliness makes you feel sad emotionally.
Right.
But how does it physically degrade the body, like high cholesterol does? What is the actual mechanism?
It comes down to the stress response. You have to remember, for 99.9% of human history, being alone was a death sentence. If you were isolated from the tribe, you were going to be eaten by a predator or you were going to starve.
So our bodies evolved to view social isolation as an existential life threat.
Correct. So when your brain perceives you as socially isolated, your body enters the state of low-level chronic hypervigilance. It's a fight-or-flight state that never turns off.
And what does that do to you?
Your cortisol levels spike, your blood pressure goes up. Your immune system function actually changes. It ramps up inflammation because it's anticipating a physical wound from a predator or a rifle.
So loneliness is essentially living in a state of chronic inflammation.
Yes, your body is constantly fighting a war that isn't actually happening. If you are lonely, you don't sleep as deeply because your brain is doing these micro-wakings all night to scan for threats. Over decades, that constant bath of cortisol and inflammation breaks down your cardiovascular system, it degrades your brain tissue, and it measurably shortens your life.
The sources actually compare loneliness to smoking, don't they?
They do. The research suggests the mortality risk of chronic loneliness is comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It is more dangerous for your long-term health than obesity.
That just puts such a heavy weight on the phrase, loneliness kills. It's not a metaphor.
It is not a metaphor. It is a biological statement of fact. And conversely, secure attachment actively protects the body. There was a finding in the sources about physical pain that I found fascinating.
What was that?
They found that when people are experiencing physical pain, but they feel securely and socially connected, their brain actually registers less suffering. The connection acts as a literal painkiller.
It's a literal buffer.
It is a biological buffer.
Now, I can hear the listener thinking, okay, point taken. I need to be less lonely. Does that mean I need to be the life of the party? Do I need 1,000 friends on Instagram to get this health benefit?
No, and that is a critical distinction. In fact, chasing popularity or a high follower count can often backfire and make you feel more lonely. Because it is absolutely not about quantity. It is about quality. It's about what psychologists call secure attachment.
So it's not about how many people know your name. It's about who you can call when everything falls apart.
That's it, exactly. Robert Waldinger clarifies this beautifully in his TED Talk. He says it's not that these close relationships have to be perfect or smooth all the time.
Okay.
You can argue with your partner. You can get annoyed with your friends.
That's real life.
That's real life. But the key is that deep down you have a fundamental confidence, a trust that if the car breaks down at 3 a.m. or you get a scary diagnosis from the doctor, they will be there.
It's that 3:00 a.m. test.
Yeah.
Who picks up the phone?
Precisely. If you have even one, maybe two of those 3.0 a.m. people in your life, your nervous system can relax. If you don't, you are constantly, biologically on guard.
This connects to another concept I saw in the sources, pro-social behavior, the sort of the loop of kindness. How do we build those bonds if we feel like we don't have them right now?
Well, the research shows that one of the most effective ways is to shift from trying to get connection to trying to give it. Helping others, what we call pro-social behavior, boosts the helper's happiness more than self-focused acts.
More than treating yourself.
Significantly more. It creates a powerful, positive feedback loop.
Give us an example of how that works mechanically.
Well, they've done these experiments where they give participants some money, say $20.
Yeah.
Group A is told to go spend it on themselves. Group B is told to spend it on someone else.
Okay.
By the end of the day, Group B, the givers, reports significantly higher levels of happiness and well-being than Group A.
Even though Group A is the one that got the new shirt or the nice lunch.
Right, because Group A got a quick hedonic hit. It felt good for a minute. But Group B got a connection hit. When you help someone, you signal to your own brain that you have enough resources to share, which makes you feel abundant, not scarce. You create gratitude in the other person, which strengthens the social bond. And you get a release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone.
So if you're feeling lonely, the best hack might not be to sit and wait for someone to call you, but to be the one who calls someone else to offer help.
It's the most reliable way to break the cycle of isolation, shift the focus from who is here for me to who can I be there for.
Okay, so relationships are the bedrock. That's the big rock in the jar we all need to place first. But we have to address the elephant in the room. We have to talk about money.
We must.
Because there is that old saying, money can't buy happiness. And usually the people saying that are the ones who have plenty of it.
Right. It's easy to say from a comfortable position.
For sure. And if you can't pay your rent or you're worried about where your next meal is coming from, you are definitely unhappy. So let's get specific. What does the data actually say about the dollar amount?
The relationship between money and happiness is what we call logarithmic, which is a fancy way of saying it helps a lot at the beginning and then the effect flattens out dramatically.
This brings us to that famous Kahneman and Deaton study. Everyone always quotes the $75,000 number.
Right. That study, which is a bit old now, found that emotional well-being, your day-to-day mood, rose with income, but only up to about $75,000 a year.
And we should adjust that for inflation, right?
Absolutely. That study is over a decade old. With inflation and the rising cost of living, more recent papers suggest that number is probably closer to $100,000 or maybe $110,000, depending on where you live.
But the principle remains the same. There's a threshold. Why does it flatten out? What happens after that point?
Think about what money is actually doing for you. Money is a tool for removing friction and stress. If you are in poverty, your life is full of high-friction events. You worry about food, you worry about safety, you worry about a flat tire completely ruining your month.
It's a constant cognitive load, just a baseline of anxiety.
Exactly. So moving from, say, $20,000 a year to $80,000 a year removes that massive load. It buys safety, it buys stability, it buys dignity. That provides a massive, massive spike in happiness. You are moving from a state of suffering to a state of stable.
Okay, that makes sense. But moving from, say, $100,000 to $10 million.
You are just upgrading the version of stability. You are moving from a reliable Honda to a flashy Ferrari, but the core utility getting from A to B safely is essentially the same. The existential stress of survival is already gone.
So the happiness curve just flattens right out.
It flattens. A billionaire is not 1,000 times happier than a dentist who makes a comfortable living. In fact, some studies suggest they might be more anxious because they have so much more to lose and more complex lives to manage.
That is so hard for our brains to accept, though. We are wired to think more is better. We see the billionaire lifestyle and think, if I just had that, I'd never be sad or worried again.
Well, you would be. You'd just be sad in a nicer house. You still have your genetic set point, you still have your relationship struggles, and you still have the hedonic treadmill churning away underneath you.
So, assuming you've met that baseline, you're stable,
hmm
how should you spend any disposable income you have? Because the sources are pretty clear that just buying more stuff is a bad strategy for happiness.
It is a terrible strategy. The research is overwhelming on this point. You should shift your spending from material goods to experiences.
So travel, learning a new skill, going to concerts, a great meal out with friends.
Yes, all of those things. Experiences yield a much higher happiness ROI, or return on investment.
Why is that? I mean, logically, a new watch lasts for 10 years. A vacation lasts for 1 week. The watch seems like the better value on paper.
It seems that way, but there are some powerful psychological forces at play. First, there's something called rosy retrospection. We tend to edit our memories of experiences over time.
How so?
When you think back to a trip you took, you tend to forget the delayed flight and the bad coffee and the mosquito bites. You just remember the beautiful sunset and the laughter with your friends.
We curate our own internal highlight reel.
Exactly. So the memory of the experience actually gets better over time. Whereas the material, good, the watch or the car, it just degrades, it gets scratched, it gets outdated when the new model comes out.
And there's that comparison trap again, isn't there?
A huge factor. It is very easy to compare my car to your car. Oh, yours is a newer model with more features. And that immediately kills some of my joy. But it is very, very hard to compare my camping trip with my kids to your trip to Paris. They're unique.
They're personal.
They're personal. They become part of our identity in a way that objects just don't. You never hear someone telling a great, engaging story about the iPhone they bought 5 years ago, but they will tell the story of the time they got hilariously lost in Tokyo for the rest of their life.
That's a great point. Experiences connect us to other people, both in the moment and in the retelling.
Exactly. While material goods often just isolate us or fuel that competitive status anxiety. So the rule of thumb is buy the trip, skip the gadget.
I like that. Okay, so we've covered the 5 to 1-10-40 split, we've covered the biology of relationships, and the diminishing returns of wealth. I want to shift now and get into the internal machinery, that 40% we actually control.
The mindset and the daily habits.
Right. The outline here mentions purpose and meaning. This feels like a big, heavy, almost intimidating topic. Do I need to quit my job and go save the rainforest to have a sense of purpose? Because that feels overwhelming.
Not at all. And that is a major barrier for people. They think purpose with a capital P means being Mother Teresa or Nelson Mandela.
Right. It feels inaccessible.
Totally. But purpose, in the psychological sense, is simply seeing your life as having a direction and having value. It's about feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself. It's about alignment.
So it can be found in a regular job.
It can be found in your job, sure. But it can also be found in being a good parent, or tending to a garden, or coaching a little league team, or mastering a craft. It's about having a why.
And just like with relationships, there's a biological kickback here too, isn't there?
There is. People with a strong sense of purpose actually have lower levels of the stress hormone cortisol and lower inflammatory markers in their blood. It seems that knowing why you are getting up in the morning literally reduces the biological stress on your body.
It's like the ultimate anti-burnout mechanism.
It is, and this connects directly to the concept of flow.
Holly Tick sent me Holly. I practice saying that name in the mirror.
You nailed it. And flow, for anyone who doesn't know, is that state of being so completely engaged and absorbed in a task that you lose track of time. You lose your sense of self-consciousness. The world just melts away.
For me, that happens when I'm deep in a research hole for one of these dives, or sometimes when I'm playing a really engaging video game, honestly.
And that's totally valid. It can be coding, painting, skiing, playing chess, playing an instrument. The key conditions are: the task must be challenging, but your skills must be roughly equal to that challenge.
The Goldilocks zone.
The Goldilocks zone of attention. If the task is too hard, you get anxious. If it's too easy, you get bored. Flow is right there in the middle.
And why is that state so crucial for happiness?
Because being in flow is the neurological opposite of rumination and anxiety. You cannot be depressed and in a state of flow at the same time. Your brain literally does not have the cognitive bandwidth for both.
That is a very practical tool. If you are feeling down or anxious, Find a high-focus activity. Don't just sit there and think about it.
Exactly. Do something that demands your full attention. But what if your brain is naturally fighting you on that? We have to talk about the negativity bias.
This is the idea that our brains are basically hardwired to be pessimists, right? For survival reasons.
It's an evolutionary hangover. Imagine you are a prehistoric human on the savannah. If you miss seeing a beautiful sunset, it's a bummer, but you live. If you miss seeing the tiger wrestling in the bushes, you're dead.
So the brain evolved to prioritize the threat above all else.
It over-prioritizes it massively. The sources describe our brain as being like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. One bad email or one critical comment can ruin a day that had 20 other good interactions.
I feel that in my bones. So happiness requires us to essentially hack our own software. We have to manually and intentionally override that ancient default setting.
We have to actively rewire it. And the most researched, most effective tool found in the sources for doing that is the gratitude protocol.
Now, hold on. I know people hear the word gratitude and they immediately roll their eyes. They think of, toxic positivity or fluffy inspirational posters.
I get it. It sounds cheesy.
But there is a specific neurological mechanism at play here. This isn't just about feeling thankful.
Not at all. It's about actively training a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, or the RAS.
The RAS, break that down for us. What is that?
The RAS is like the filter or the bouncer at the nightclub of your brain. It sits at the base of your brain, and it decides what tiny fraction of the billions of bits of sensory information around you gets through to your conscious attention.
Okay.
So right now, your RAS is filtering out the feeling of your clothes on your skin, the hum of the air conditioning, the traffic outside so you can focus on my voice. It's a selective filter.
And gratitude practice changes the filter settings.
Precisely. If you practice gratitude, and the specific protocol is writing down 3 new things you are grateful for every day for a few weeks, you are reprogramming that filter. You are giving your RAS a new search parameter.
You're literally telling your brain, pay attention to the good stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
because if you know you have to write down 3 things tonight, your brain starts scanning the world differently all day long. You start actively looking for positives to write down later. You notice the good coffee, you notice the sunshine, you notice the stranger who held the door for you. You are collecting positive data. Over time, you literally begin to see a different world than someone who is constantly scanning for threats.
That turns it from a fluffy self-help exercise into a concrete cognitive training drill.
It is cognitive behavioral therapy in a notebook. It's that powerful.
And the archenemy of this practice, of contentment in general, is comparison.
Comparison is the thief of joy. It's an old saying for a reason.
The sources are so clear on this. Focusing on what other people have is one of the fastest ways to reduce our own contentment. And social media has weaponized this tendency.
It has put it on steroids. It's the highlight reel problem. You are sitting on your couch, scrolling through Instagram, looking at someone's perfectly curated, filtered, best angle out of 100 photos vacation picture.
Right.
And you are comparing that curated highlight to your own behind-the-scenes footage. Your messy kitchen, your crying toddler, your own deep-seated insecurity. It's an impossible comparison.
It's an asymmetric comparison. You can't win. It's designed for you to lose.
You cannot win, and the data shows a direct correlation. Heavy social media users have significantly higher rates of depression and lower life satisfaction, and the primary driver is social comparison.
So part of building this happiness portfolio is active risk management. You have to consciously limit your exposure to the things that you know trigger that comparison loop.
Absolutely. It's simple mental hygiene. Unfollow accounts that consistently make you feel inadequate. It's one of the easiest levers to pull.
Okay, we have talked about the mind, the psychology. Let's talk about the machine, the body.
Yeah.
Because you can't think your way to happiness if your biology is crashing and burning.
You really can't. The mind and body are a single, interconnected feedback loop. If your physical system is inflamed or exhausted or depleted, your mood will inevitably follow.
The sources mention a few biological basics. Exercise is the big one. But again, what I found interesting is that the data is surprisingly forgiving. You don't need to become a CrossFit champion.
Well, no, not at all. In fact, extreme exercise can sometimes increase cortisol and stress on the body. The sweet spot for mood and happiness is actually quite moderate.
How moderate?
Some studies show that even 10 to 20 minutes of movement a day makes a statistically significant difference in preventing and treating depression. Just a brisk walk.
So why is that? Is it just the endorphins, the runner's high?
Endorphins are the immediate high, yes. But there's something deeper and more long-lasting going on. Self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy.
When you choose to move your body, even when you don't feel like it, you prove to yourself that you have agency. You are doing something good for yourself. That builds a sense of control and competence.
It breaks that feeling of helplessness or inertia that often comes with a low mood.
Exactly. Plus, on a chemical level, it literally metabolizes stress hormones. If you are stressed, your blood is full of cortisol and adrenaline. Sitting on the couch just lets them marinate in your system. Going for a walk actually burns them off as fuel.
And then there's the nature connection. This one feels really intuitive to me, but the data is strong.
It's very strong. The concept is called biophilia, the idea that humans have an innate, evolved connection to the natural world. We have only been living in concrete boxes for a tiny fraction of our species' history.
So what happens to our brains and bodies when we step outside?
When we are in green spaces or near water, our parasympathetic nervous system activates. That's the rest and digest system. It's the opposite of fight or flight. Your heart rate drops, your blood pressure drops, your cortisol levels decrease.
So nature is a natural nervous system regulator.
It is. Our brains process natural fractals, the repeating patterns in leaves and trees and clouds, effortlessly. Whereas processing urban environments, sharp angles, traffic, text, advertisements, requires what's called directed attention, which drains our cognitive battery. Nature recharges that battery.
I feel that so clearly. 10 minutes in a park can do more for my mental clarity than an hour of napping sometimes.
It's a biological reset button.
One last biological factor from the sources: autonomy. They use this wonderful phrase, time affluence.
Time affluence. I love that phrase. It is the ultimate form of wealth.
Define it for us. What does it mean?
It is the subjective feeling that you have control over your own schedule, that you have enough time for the things that matter to you, that you aren't constantly rushing or being dictated to by others.
And this often trades off directly with money, right?
It does. There are fascinating studies showing that people who are given a choice and choose time over money, for example, taking a slightly lower paying job that offers more flexibility or a shorter commute, are consistently happier than those who maximize income at the expense of time.
So being rich but time poor feels like a trap.
It feels like a gilded cage, whereas being middle class but time rich feels like freedom.
That is such a powerful lever for people to pull. If you're feeling stuck or unhappy at work, maybe you don't need a raise. Maybe you need to negotiate for a Friday afternoon off.
Exactly. Reclaiming your time can be more valuable than the extra money.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground. We've looked at the genetics, the 5-1-40 split, the physiology of loneliness, the income threshold, the mindset hacks, the biology. Now let's try to synthesize all of this. If we're building a happiness portfolio, for our listener treating happiness like a serious investment strategy, what is the ideal asset allocation?
I really like that portfolio analogy because just like with financial investing, you need diversification. You don't want to put all your emotional eggs in one basket.
Right. Don't put 100% of your happiness in the My Career stock, because if that market crashes, you are completely bankrupt.
Exactly. So let's break it down into, say, 3 main tranches or asset classes.
Okay, tranche 1. What is it?
Tranche 1 is your long-term bonds. This is your safety net. This is your core holding. This is your relationships.
So low volatility, steady, reliable compounding over decades.
Yes, this should be 40 to 50% of your portfolio. You invest in this by calling your parents, scheduling dinner with friends, prioritizing date night with your partner. This is the asset that protects you when the rest of life inevitably goes wrong.
Got it. The bedrock. Tranche 2.
Tranche 2 is your daily trading. This is your active management. This is your mindset and your daily habits.
Okay, so this requires more frequent attention.
This is the gratitude journal. This is the cognitive reframing of negative thoughts. This is deliberately seeking out a state of flow. You have to do this every day, or at least most days. This is what generates the positive cash flow of emotion in your life.
Makes sense. And tranche 3.
Tranche 3 is maintenance and infrastructure. This is the body.
Sleep, exercise, nutrition, getting out in nature.
Yep. If the building's foundation is crumbling, it doesn't matter how nicely you decorate the rooms inside. You have to maintain the physical vessel. If you are chronically sleep deprived, the other 2 tranches won't work. You won't have the patience for your relationships or the mental focus for gratitude.
So what are we shorting? What do we dump from the portfolio?
That's your risk management. You actively divest from social comparison. You sell your shares in the hedonic treadmill. You stop thinking the next purchase or the next promotion is the thing that will finally fix you.
I love that structure.
Yeah.
It turns the vague command, be happy, into an actionable checklist. You could literally ask yourself, how are my bonds doing? Did I do my daily trading today? Is my infrastructure sound?
It makes it manageable. And it reminds you that the 40% is under your control. You are the portfolio manager. You get to make the trades.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave the learner with one final perspective. We've given them all these tools, this portfolio. But is there a trap in using them too aggressively? Can you try too hard to be happy?
There is, and this is the great paradox of happiness that comes up in the research.
It's paradox.
The research shows that people who obsessively monitor their own happiness, who are constantly waking up and asking, am I happy today? How about now? Is this working? They are actually, on average, less happy.
It's the watch pot never boils effect applied to your own mind.
It's exactly that. The psychological term is monitoring. It creates a perpetual gap between where you are and where you think you should be. And that gap creates anxiety and a sense of failure.
So what's the alternative? If we shouldn't focus on the goal of happiness, what should we focus on?
The alternative is to forget about the output and focus entirely on the inputs.
Ignore the scoreboard, just play the game.
That's it. Don't wake up and ask, am I happy? Wake up and ask, am I going to be connected today? Am I going to be helpful to someone? Am I going to learn something interesting? Am I going to move my body?
If you get all the inputs right, the output, the happiness just takes care of itself.
It becomes the natural byproduct of a life well lived, not the target itself. You find it by looking for something else.
That is the perfect place to land. So here's our challenge to you, the learner. Don't try to overhaul your entire portfolio at once. That's overwhelming. Just pick one lever from today's dive.
Just one.
Maybe text that friend you haven't seen in 6 months and set up a coffee. Maybe tonight, before you go to sleep, write down 3 good things that happened today. Maybe just go for a 10-minute walk without your phone.
Just one small thing. Start there.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.